Welcome to the Hard Truth Podcast. This is Jeremy Fouts. In today's episode, we have got a special treat for you. Justin Roland out of Oklahoma, and he is the owner of mindshift Coaching, a six-figure earner, a father to three girls. And, obviously on this podcast, we do a lot of talking about macros, nutrition, lifting weights, all the things that you need to do in order to become the best version of you. What's really attracted me to Justin as we became friends is the mind shift coaching part. He's the best that I've seen at making sure that the mind has got to be right. And that's why we're going to name this episode The Mindset. So we're going to be talking, yes, about macros, yes, about the importance of lifting weights, but more importantly, we're going to talk about what the most important thing is making sure the mind is right. So I'm excited, Justin, for you to be on today. I definitely am excited for my audience to understand this mind shift coaching part. The mind is a powerful tool if we use it correctly. And, when we was talking the other day, you said, Jeremy, what motivates me the most? And you got chills that come up on my arm. You said, is I can't stand it when people don't live to their full potential. And I'm sorry, I stole that line the other night when I spoke to those high school kids, because that just stuck with me. And so many people, whether they're my age, whether they're your age, whether a 16-year-old athlete, most people never reach their full potential. And that is definitely sad. So I'm excited to have you on. Justin, tell us a little bit about your story. What got you started down this path of coaching others with their meal plans, helping them with their mindset, and background on you and your family.
Let's go. What up?
Absolutely, Jeremy. I really appreciate the introduction. That was incredible. So what got me started with this, I started as a in-person personal trainer at about the age of 18, right out of high school, with Gold's Gym. The in-person was great, learned a lot. Then I moved into West Palm Beach, Florida, and I did the same thing with LA Fitness. So I've been in the fitness space for quite some time. My father was also in the fitness space. Him and my uncle owned gyms, and he owned a fitness consulting business when I was in high school as well. So I've always kind of been, around that atmosphere, even growing up as a young child. So what actually made me start this company was the simple fact that I've always had a clientele base that I kept privately. Even when I worked a blue collar job, I would still get up at 5 or 4 in the morning and go train clients before work. And then I'd come home after a 12-hour shift and train them after. So with me saying that, I no longer wanted to put in 80, 90 hours a week in the oil field and make someone else, wealthy while neglecting my family. It just was not worth it to me. So I really felt a push from within, guys, and you can believe that or you cannot, but the Bible says, that his people know, or, his sheep know his voice. And, I felt that push from within to make an impact. Like you are capable of more than what you're currently doing. Let's get out there. Let's influence some people. Let's potentially add some years to people's life and really make an impact. So that's where the physical, and the fitness portion came with mindshift coaching. Now, the mindshift side came from this. So when I had my first daughter, I was 30 years old. Her name's Charlie. And I was in a depression at that point. My testosterone levels were at a 200. I was laid off from a job that I'd been at for 3 years. And this is when COVID hit, and spent a year of my life not working. I would still do, a little bit of training here and there, but it just wasn't enough to really be fulfilling. So anyways, kind of went into a little bit of a depression at that point, but it was actually a blessing. Because never in my life have I slowed down long enough to self-reflect and self-evaluate and just reflect on the years prior or the patterns that have led to certain situations. And I think a lot of people struggle with that, because the top excuse I hear is, oh, I'm too busy. I'm too busy. I'm too busy. And it's like, you better make some time and set some time aside and self-reflect, measure your performance and start analyzing and finding the patterns that no longer suit the version of who you want to become in the future. So between the depression and having my first child, that's when I really dove headfirst into personal development, where I started listening to, instead of listening to music, I would turn on a podcast or an audiobook. By me saying that, the first step to this was changing the quality of what I was consuming via radio, or, just swapping music out for podcasts, swapping music out for audiobooks. To me, that was like the number one step in the right direction. But I also mentioned my daughter because for some reason that lit a fire in me that can never be put out. At that point, I knew I have an obligation, I have a duty to not only raise this kid, but to raise this kid to stand out, to raise this kid to not settle for average or mediocrity. And anyone, I feel like, can have a kid and raise them to be average. Very few are willing to put in the time and the effort to really help their child understand, whether it's nutrition or health or just work ethic or peak performance in general. So that was something I, became very passionate about. And then I started coaching their soccer teams, and it's just been, it's been a blessing. I say all of that to say this: there were trials, there were hurdles, there were obstacles, and there was a lot of adversity that had to be dialed into for me to get to the point where I'm at today. And there were many times that I questioned, just going back to a 9-to-5.
Yeah.
But then I would have had to deal with that for the rest of my life. And to me, that's quitting. I'm not a quitter. I have a refuse to lose attitude. So I also got put in a situation where it was back up against the wall, sink or swim with this business. It's like, okay, are you willing to do what it takes to make this business successful so that you and your family and potential clients can benefit in the long run? Or are you going to quit when things get hard and go back to your 9-to-5? That option's always on the table, and it always will be. But do you embrace that, or do you fight it? Keep fighting and overcome, any obstacles that's thrown your way, because average people retreat when things get hard. That's why a lot of people lack confidence and self-esteem. Where do you think confidence and self-esteem come from? They come from doing things hard consistently, even when you don't feel like doing them. And that's something I had to, dive into head first each time that would even pop into my head. It's like, okay, I have the option to quit and retreat, but I don't want to. I have to lead by example. And if I do this, then I'm showing my kids that. So it was sink or swim. And when you burn the boats and put yourself in a sink or swim situation, you'd really be surprised at what you're truly capable of. And I don't think a lot of people understand their true potential and what they're actually capable of, because they don't push themselves hard.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. Your input determines your output, Justin. You said you changed, what you put in your mind. I tell everyone from long years of leadership and training, and I tell them, look, we know the outcome if we go to McDonald's on a daily basis, what we're going to get in our body. It's the same way with what you're putting in your mind. If we're putting in porn, we're putting in, things that's not good for our mind, and then nothing wrong with music. I like music, but I'm the same way. If I'm awake and I'm lifting, I'm taking a walk, I'm doing whatever time that I'm available to be awake, I'm trying to feed the mind to be the best we can be. And
that's it.
I love that, man. I love that. And a lot of the audience, maybe I've never told the story, but the phrase burn the boats, where that comes from, don't you?
Listen, I've heard multiple people say it. Now, where it originated from, I can't tell you that.
There was a guy named Cortez. Now, this is old Spaniard guy. And I don't remember the exact details. I've told it a lot before, but they pulled up on an island, and they was like 300 people army, and they was about to face like 1,000 people army. And they was told that there's no way in the world that they can win this battle. And Cortez ordered every one of them to burn the boats. He said, burn the boats. And they said, what are we doing this for? He goes, because we have to win. And they said, what boats are we going to use then if we win this battle? He said, we're going to take their boats.
Their boats. I love that. I love
I
that.
love burn the boats, man. That's just powerful.
Yeah.
But you're exactly right. I mean, the reason you're succeeding is because number one, you burned the boats. You said, this is what I'm going to do for my family. But the other thing, Justin, the reason you're succeeding is your love and your passion, to make an impact on others. So, during this process, my audience is always going to have the best people that they can give a call and say, hey, Justin, I'm ready to make a change. I want to make a change, but I really don't know how to make a change. What are some of the things that you talk your clients through at making that change? Obviously, you help them with their macros, their meal plans, but the mindset part also is big. If I called you up today and I didn't know you and say, Justin, man, I'm looking at your biceps. I see how you're feeling. I see that you're out coaching your girls. You're a part of their life. You know what? I want to be that example for my kids, but I don't know where to start. I don't know what to do. What are some of the steps that you talk these clients into to help them transform their life?
Love that. So we would start with their why always. We always start with their why because you need to know why you're wanting to become a better person. What is the reasoning behind this? Is it just for yourself? Is it for your family? Or, is it to make an impact or possibly teach a lesson? So finding that why is always going to be the first step. Then I always teach them to basically visualize the process. Like and listen, visualization can be hard for some people, but it is, through repetition, you're going to get better at visualization. And I even teach my girls this with a pencil, and like I teach them to close their eyes, visualize a pencil. What color is your pencil? What color is your pencil? How long I just teach them small things so that we can start implementing visualization into their life at an early age. So I teach my clients to visualize the process, visualize the journey, and then let's visualize the end result. Now, I don't want you to focus on the end result because sometimes that can be overwhelming or discouraging, seeing how far you have to go. So let's take this one day at a time, one step at a time. And listen, let me say this. When I started this business, I made $0 for, I'd say 6-7 months, but I had a note on my wall that said, all it said on it was a sticky note, and I still got it. It said one more day. So that told me just show up one more day. And, when I prayed at night, I would say, the breakthrough's tomorrow. Tomorrow's the breakthrough. Just show up for one more day and that breakthrough's coming. Because in life, a lot of people quit right before that breakthrough shows up. And, a lot of times they're this close to the breakthrough, but they just can't bear the stress or, the discouragement. So, I have them look at the end goal. We dive into detail about that. We ask them, basically, what are some of the patterns that have led you to be in this position right now? We kind of break those down. What habits have also led you to be in this position? Also, we break those down. Then we start pulling the bad habits and replacing them with healthier habits. So if you're up at night, you're craving ice cream at night. Okay, listen, I teach my clients, okay, we can grab a protein. We can mix it with water, 30 grams of protein, 4 grams of carbs, 2 grams of sugar. I'd rather you consume that than to go eat a bowl of ice cream or a bowl of cereal. And I try to teach them not to do that within an hour or two before bed, but some people will cave and go for that ice cream. And a lot of times the protein definitely helps with that craving. So, and I always send my clients personal development podcasts. I'll send motivational quotes, Bible verses, things like that, just to up their spirit, keep the fire lit and keep them motivated. So,
yeah, I love it. Don't quit. I love stories, Justin, and I don't know if you've heard this story or not, but one of the largest gold mines ever discovered was not discovered by the guy that started digging for that gold mine. It was discovered by the guy that took over after he quit. This one guy decided he wanted to go to discover gold, and he borrowed money from all of his family and friends and started digging, and the excavators, all these different things. And he finally just said, I'm not going to find what I need to find to make it worth it. So he quit. Someone else found that same equipment, bought it at an auction, and started digging in the same spot, discovered one of the largest gold mines ever, and he was less than 2 feet away. The guy that quit was less than 2 feet away. So I love the don't quit, man, everything we do. And that's why I love lifting weights so much. I can go back and look at, my journey and lifting and seeing that, man, if I would have quit, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. So I love the don't quit. So I come to you, I'm a client, and I say, hey, Justin, here's my why, and here's what I want to do. And now what are some of the things that you're going to help me in this process and getting started? You already talked about the mindset. Obviously, you talked to me about my why. Why do I want to do this? Visualization. I'm a baseball dad, been in baseball, all of my life. And my company I own, we sell a lot to the MLB teams, our Hydrate product. And, I eat, breathe, and sleep baseball. And that's something that any good baseball player will tell you. Visualization is key, because if you go up to the plate and you're sitting there thinking, man, I better not strike out, you're going to strike out. You go up to the plate and say, man, I'm going to hit a ball in the gap here. You're going to hit a ball in the gap. Not every time, but having that visualization. So after that, what are some of the things? I know you held an accountability. You've already talked about that, letting your clients know, about positive podcasts, personal development, all of those different things. But what are some other things that you're going to help me with if I come to you and say, I want to change my health journey as well, not just my mindset? I assume you help with the macros and different things like that.
For sure. So we're going to tailor your macro percentages based on your specific body composition and your goal. So based off your age, your height, your weight, your gender, your daily level of activity, and your caloric output, which we will track inside of my app by connecting either your Apple Watch or Fitbit or your wearable device, so that I can track all of that on my dashboard. And we tailor those macro percentages because, listen, anybody can jump on Google or, get a free app or maybe chat GPT some average macro percentages. But when you're tracking things, you're going to notice like, okay, this person's body composition hasn't changed in, let's say 2 weeks. We need to do some fine tuning. We need to modify. So let's move around some of the percentages, whether it's the protein, the carbs, the fats, so that we don't hit a plateau and so that we can basically guarantee the desired goal. And listen, any coach that tells you or thinks that they can hit a home run on the first layout of a tailored program, I don't think it's possible, because at the beginning, you don't know their daily level of activity besides what they tell you. You don't know their average calorie output because most people don't track that. So once we connect these devices, after about 2 weeks of getting some averages, then we can really crunch the numbers, dive in, and do some fine tuning. So aside from that, we put everybody into a group inside of my app. We also add everyone into a Facebook community where they can chat, they can share wins, likes, hacks, tips, motivation. And then after that, we would set up their workouts. Are you wanting an at-home approach or are you wanting a gym approach? Or do you want a 50-50 approach? We can do the, at home for 2-3 days or at the gym 2-3 days. And that's kind of where a lot of the customization comes in, because a lot of workout programs are thrown out there in a cookie cutter format just for the gym or just for at home. And you're going to have clients with limitations, with mobility restrictions, or their range of motion is limited. So they probably cannot follow a cookie cutter approach if they have limitations. And that has a lot to do with the tailored process of the workouts. And the last thing I'll say is we focus on daily habits. This is where your sodium intake needs to be at per day. This is where your water intake needs to be at per day. Let's also prioritize self-care, because when you start taking care of yourself better, you're going to feel better. You're going to look better. The attitude's going to be better, confidence, all of that. So then we would go into the one-on-one weekly coaching calls. And a lot of people say, how do you have the time to do that? Well, it's like, listen, I'll make the time because I can't afford not to, because there's a lot of coaches out there that are not doing these weekly calls or these group calls. And the question is, if you're not speaking with your clients, how do you know what their struggle was for that week? And how do you provide solutions when they hit a roadblock or a struggle? Let's jump on a quick 10-15 minute call. Let's go over your form. So I send them an accountability form every week. And then at the end of that form, it asks, what's your biggest win of the week? What was your biggest struggle? So based off of that form, we dive into it on those one-on-one calls, and we just provide solutions every single week and hold them accountable.
That's awesome, Justin. I've got to ask, man, I don't have a coaching business. I help a lot of people though, but what is the biggest struggle you see people are having? Is it usually hitting their workouts or following their macros, or a little bit of both?
It's definitely a little bit of both. So if I had to choose one, it's going to be macros. A lot of people do not want to track anything. And there's a lot I could say about that. But at the end of the day, how bad do you want it?
Yeah.
Yeah. How bad do you really want it? You say you want it. It goes back to that old saying you heard back in school, talk is cheap.
Yeah.
And you have to want something bad enough. And when you make that a priority and you're consistent with the discipline, you will then get that result. And you can never put in, and I tell them all the time, you cannot put in 50% effort and expect 100% results. This is not a scratch off ticket. Like, you have to put in the work to get the results. That's why, I'm really against a lot of these, these magic pills, because what happens when they're banned or when your insurance drops it is you never attacked the contributing factors or the root causes that led to you being on this medication. And what the common denominator there is the habits, the eating habits, the poor choices. Until you attack that and fix that, you're going to struggle.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things I was telling a friend of mine that was struggling the other day following his macros, I just said, hey, look, the best way for me to put it, and I don't know if you if you agree or not, but I said, food can be a drug or it can be a fuel. Which one are you choosing? Because so many times we choose the sugar, the alcohol, all these different things to give us comfort, to make us feel good short term, instead of looking at a food source as a fuel. What fuel do I need before this workout? What fuel do I need right after to recover? What fuel do I need as far as making sure I'm getting the right protein in my diet? I was working with a high school athlete yesterday and helped him figure out, he's a 315-pound lineman. And I had him to walk me through his day on Saturday, what he ate, Justin, and it was 90% carbs and 10% protein, and I'm like, that's not going to work.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm glad you said that. I agree. Macros is probably the hardest for people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And usually out of all the macros, I would say people struggle hitting their protein goals each day.
Yeah.
The most.
Yeah. And tell us, I'm a big protein guy. So tell my audience why protein. Mario knows, the producer of the show. I always say, on videos all the time on Instagram, I'm like, protein is king. You got to get the protein in. And so you give us your perspective why protein is so huge.
Well, not only is it beneficial, all across the board as the building block, for muscle, but it even helps out with, diabetics who are struggling with, blood glucose or blood sugar levels. And it eliminates cravings, guys. If your protein is high, then your body is not going to crave as much of this junk that you do towards the end of the day, because that protein has basically fixed or consumed the craving that your body is wanting. So I always push proteins, at least depending on the client's goal, the proteins will always be above 40%.
Yep. I that's why I have you on the show, man, is I knew your belief in protein, and I 100% believe that you can change a lot of people's lives by increasing their protein to what it needs to. 100%. If they eat that much protein, they're not going to want the bad carbs. They're not going to want the sugars.
No, not at all.
Yeah. So in your coaching program, I'm excited for the audience to get hooked up with you. One of the things that I always ask at the end of the show is, give us a hard truth fact. I know you probably haven't had time to prepare for this, but I'm going to spring it on you anyway. Hard truth fact. That you and I, through our visits, I named this the Hard Truth Podcast because I'm like you. I'm not saying, that Ozempic is not an occasional thing for someone that's maybe extremely obese, a short term. I'm not going to get into that subject, but for the average people, I'm like you. I don't believe in Ozempic. I don't believe in, pills that's going to make the fat melt off of you. I believe in a lifestyle and a mindset change, but if you had to close this podcast out by talking to the audience and say, hey, man, the hard true fact is whatever it is. And after you're done with that, share with us a way for my audience to get in contact with you, whether it be, I know you do a lot of lives on TikTok. I've watched some of your lives. You know, you're extremely passionate. You care. You know, I mean, I see people on TikTok live and they basically want to flash their arms and say, you know, come jump on my wagon. And that's it. I mean, yes, you have big biceps. Yes, you have a awesome, you know, but the one thing that I was attracted to, like I said at the beginning, is the mindset part. You spend so much time educating people on, look, it starts with you wanting to make a change. So what would you say the hard true fact is that you could share with the audience to really just kind of, especially if it's a man, kind of slap them up the face and say, hey man, it's time to change. It's time to do something about it. And then how can they get a hold of you and follow you on Instagram and TikTok and any other way if they want to communicate with you to be able to sign up for your coaching program?
Absolutely. So I'm going to give you a bonus. I'm going to give you 2 hard truths. The first one
is what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Listen, guys, you can do what's easy now and have a hard life, or you can do what's hard now and have an easy life. And I heard that from Andy Elliott. Again, the second truth I'm going to tell you is this: you can have results or you can have excuses, but you can't have both at the same time. So you kind of have to pick one, take action in order to get the desired results that you're looking for. It's just, you know, it all comes down to how bad do you really want it. So, and you guys can reach me on Instagram at Justin_Roland_coaching. And that is the same exact handle that I use on TikTok as well. I go live at 8:30 p.m. Central Standard Time just about every single night. So definitely look forward to hearing from some of you guys.
Justin Roland, it's been an honor. Mindshift coaching expert, 6-figure income earner through helping people and being a difference maker in people's lives. It's an honor and a privilege to have you on, Justin. I love your Oklahoma accent as well. People give me a hard time because I'm from Oklahoma, and it's comforting having someone that sounds like me, and it's exciting, man. I you know, not only to watch your business continue to flourish, but to watch you be an example for your wife and your 3 kids. And that's something that is going to pay big dividends, Justin. You're being an example of what a true man is. And that's why I wanted to have you on today's show. And thank you for being a part of it, and keep making an impact in people's lives, Justin.
Really appreciate it. And thank you for the opportunity. Really appreciate
it. Anytime, Justin. You're going to be back on the show. Guys, reach out to Justin Roland. We'll put his handle in the notes for the podcast for you to reach out to him. Thank you guys for choosing the Hard Truth Podcast. I know we do appreciate the reviews that help with the algorithm. Give us a review, whatever you're listening to, Apple, Spotify. I know I've had a lot of people that's texted me recently and said, I want to leave a review. How do I leave a review? You can just Google, how do I leave a review on this on Apple or Spotify or whatever you're listening to the podcast on. So thank you guys for joining us. Have an awesome day. And like Justin said, you can choose. You're either going to live, you know, choose the easy life now and have harder times later, or do the hard now for you can have an easy life like you want to design it. Thank you guys.
Let's go.